Hello, people. Finished the book. Uh, First, just a little bit about this fucking weather. It's been very, very hot. We've had this series of 90-degree days, and fuck this. I'm out here. I'm actually gonna put a fire in the grill, just because I'm not leaving the air conditioning on while I'm at work. And I come home, it's fucking hot as hell in the house. I just put the AC on, so I'm going to grill a hamburger outside. But here's the book that I finished. This thing was actually on the shelf, and I never read it. And this is a wonderful book, Napoleon and Talleyrand, The Last 2 Weeks. And I've said many times before, I've said that in order to learn about something, man, if they just wrote books about the Napoleonic Wars and they broke it down into 2-week segments, that'd be fucking fantastic. I got a little bit of notes here. I absolutely love this book. When I was getting close to being done, it's only 262 pages, so it did not take long. When I was getting close to being done, I was like, hey, slow down a little bit. I've got second paragraph, page 56 here. And I'm not sure who they're talking about. They're talking about Talleyrand. The city he drove through was not the handsome capital of broad boulevards and long perspectives of today. It was still a dark, walled, medieval town. This is in 1814. Most of the streets were narrow, muddy, unpaved, and without sidewalks. Pedestrians walked them in danger for their lives. Professional décrotteurs thrived on the filth in the streets, stationing themselves at main intersections to clean mud and manure from boots and clothing for a fee. Because there were few sewers, storms turned some streets into impassable rivers. Neighborhood concierges would throw portable wood bridges over the rushing waters and collect tolls from those wanting to cross. And of course, the author is talking about Paris there. Paris, like most other cities, maybe not all of them by 1814, maybe some of them had cleaned up their act, but like most large cities in Europe, were shitholes, They were germ factories, they were shitholes. And when he says, the broad boulevards and long perspectives, that's because of a guy named Haussmann. And Haussmann was hired by Napoleon III, Louis Napoleon III, they wanted to make Paris like riot proof. They didn't want them to be able to build barricades and have so many blind turns and shit. But as we all know, it was not riot proof after Haussmann, because that's when they had the Paris Commune. Paris is a fucking crazy city. The people there are crazy, and they still riot to this day. We meet a guy named Underwood, and I think that I've run into Underwood before, reading about the Napoleonic Wars. Underwood is an English gentleman who's been taken prisoner, and they take him to Paris. I don't know if he was an officer and they just let him roam around, but that's what he does. He just roams around Paris. He probably gave his word that he wouldn't try to escape, and people kept their word in those days, most of the time. And I've got written here the perfect book, and I already explained why. Second paragraph, page 169. And I was, actually thinking to myself, when I make a lot of notes in a book, sometimes I don't make a lot of notes in a book. Does that mean I liked it better or worse? I don't know. Second paragraph, page 169. I liked Napoleon, Talleyrand wrote afterward, but beaten, He had to disappear from the scene. That's the fate of conquered usurpers. The duty of good Frenchmen was to consider the fate of France invaded. How much she had against her. What means, what form of government would enable her to meet this calamity? I was neither betraying Napoleon nor conspiring against him. I never conspired in my life except with the majority of Frenchmen and to save France. Napoleon was his own worst enemy. And Napoleon and Talleyrand go way back, way back. And I read somewhere once that Talleyrand had a very bad limp. One of his nicknames was the Limping Devil. And I read somewhere once that Napoleon Napoleon was walking really very fast and expected Talleyrand to keep up with him. One of the times that Napoleon was mad at him. Napoleon said numerous times that he should have had Talleyrand hung. Talleyrand definitely conspired against him. My note here says, Blücher and the young Parisian ladies. Somewhere in one of my books, there was a story about Blücher being in Paris and sitting on a bench, and some young ladies were flirting with him. And he said something to them that was apparently very witty, but the author chose to write whatever Blücher said in French. And so I could not figure it out. And while I was reading this book, I thought, well, maybe they'll give me that little anecdote again, but they didn't. And in fact, there was very, very little in this book about Blücher at all. Towards the end, the Allies take a pretty desperate gamble to take Paris. After Leipzig, the Allies are in France. They're fighting in France. Napoleon's troops are outnumbered, and he pulls Frederick the Great, where he starts to fight his war. It's a war of maneuver. The Allies were not real bold, so anytime Napoleon moved his troops back towards the Rhine and threatened their lines of communication, they would also retreat to the east. And so they did that over and over. And at one point, the Tsar Alexander says, fuck this, man. Let's just take Paris and see what happens. Schwarzenberg finally gets convinced to do it. Blücher's gung-ho for anything. And they do it. And it ends up, being bad for Napoleon. The French are tired of the wars. And Talleyrand and the rest of the government in Paris kind of conspires against Napoleon. Ney has already made up his mind that he's not going to put up with this shit anymore. And then towards the end, this guy named Marmont defects with his troops. It's the Sixth Corps or something like that. It's a lot of troops. It's like 15,000 men, and that's it. These are veterans that defect. And after that, Napoleon decides to abdicate. He ends up, I believe, abdicating unconditionally. At first, he abdicates. He wants to give power to his son that he had with, I can't remember her name, but the Austrian princess. But that doesn't happen, and they bring back the Bourbon king, Louis XVIII. Louis XVIII is a great big fat slob. He's got health problems, and nobody really likes him. They put Napoleon on Elba, and it doesn't last very long. He escapes from Elba, comes back, and then that's what they call the 100 Days, and the 100 Days ends with the Battle of Waterloo. There's a few more days, yeah. But then they put him on St. Helena, and Napoleon dies there. And I've got one more thing here. Page 261, which is the second to the last page. Fourth paragraph, 2, 3, 4. This is something about Talleyrand. Talleyrand is a very interesting character. I have had my hand on his memoirs. They have it at King Book, and I didn't buy it for some reason. I'm gonna have to get that back if I ever get back on my feet and get some fucking money in my pocket. I arrange my life to be monotonous, Talleyrand wrote. I am neither happy nor unhappy. My health is neither good nor bad. I have no pain, no illness. I am simply failing little by little. I'm through. I've planted some trees, built a house, and done a lot of other stupid things. Isn't it time to have done with it? And you know what? I know exactly how he feels. He lived to be 80-some. I'm not quite there yet. But I've planted some trees. I built a cabin. I didn't build this house. And I don't know that he's really talking about he physically built a house. He's probably talking about he financed the building of probably a beautiful mansion. But I have planted some trees. Some of them I regret planting because now they're huge. And I built my cabin. Anyways, I thought that was pretty cool. And I've run into that before, too, that quote there. I don't think the last time I ran into it, it said anything. It didn't say stupid things. But anyways, that's the way quotes are. You'll read the same quote in a book, and it'll be totally different. Thanks for watching.